and we are live. Welcome back to the Unlocked Jam Room, everybody. I'm so excited today. I'm hoping that everybody is doing well and staying healthy. These are still really difficult times. I What a treat I have for you today. What a treat I have for you today. My guest on the Unlocked Jam Room today is a maestro who has united Africa and India in one rhythm. A composer, a maestro of a percussionist, a multi-percussionist, an arranger, and just a philosopher of music. Today, my guest on the Unlocked Jam Room is Maestro TAUFIQ QURESHI. And I'm so honored, I'm so privileged, and a little nervous also because, it is a Herculean task to be able to engage in a conversation with such a maestro. But without any further ado, the maestro is with us. I will invite him right here on Instagram and we will start the Unlocked conversation. I'm so excited. Waiting for the maestro to join in.
Hi.
Shashtang Pranam TAUFIQ ji. Shashtang Salam.
Hi, how are you, Mayookh? How are you doing? All good?
I'm in good rhythm, as you say. How are you?
That's my tagline. That's my tagline.
I know, I've taken that from you, and now I'll make it into a hashtag and stay home, stay safe, and stay in good rhythm. These three.
I love to say that because for me, let me just increase the volume. Sorry, it's full.
Sure, no problem.
You can see me and hear me properly? I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Am
So,
I audible to you?
yes, very much, very much, very much.
Okay.
So basically, I have this habit of whenever I ask people also, or when I write any message or WhatsApp, I always ask people, I hope you're in good rhythm. Because for me, the whole life is in rhythm. Everything is in rhythm. The world is in rhythm and everything is in rhythm. That's why.
Absolutely.
How
It's a fantastic phrase, and it's a you are living that life, and it incorporates into your spirit. Before I get into an interview, Tawfiq ji, first of all, how is everybody at home? How are you? How is Yitika ji? How is Shekharnan? Is everybody? Are you all doing okay?
Yes, thank you. We are all good, and with God's grace, we are all in good rhythm, and we are doing good. And thank you for inviting me to your show. And
Honored.
this is not going to be an interview. It's going to be a chat. We both are going to chat.
Absolutely.
Even I'll ask you some questions if you don't mind. I mean, I'll ask you something.
I mean, I don't know if I have the answers for that, but of course.
I know you're a fabulous percussionist, a fabulous musician. So we can share ideas, we can share with each other. Rather than you just asking and me just jabbering.
Let's just improvise, We are. Tawfiq ji, the first thing I want to ask you is, your introduction with Abbaji's collaboration with Buddy Rich and that album, and your search and your affinity towards what you call the other sounds in these albums. From that collaboration to R.D. Burman songs, how did your introduction with the Djembe happen? Was it love at first sound, or how did it? Tell us about that. The introduction.
Basically, I guess my first advent into the realm of the other rhythm, where all these other percussion sounds were there, because since childhood I have been hearing tabla, tabla, tabla everywhere since I was brought home from the hospital as a small little baby. So that sound, that naad, has always been in my ears, and it still is. So I guess that collaboration of Abbaji's with Buddy Rich, which was called Rich Ala Rakha, that time it was a very unique thing. Tabla player and drum players sitting together and combining their talents and exchanging ideas. And I guess Abbaji is the first one to cross many boundaries, playing first time with a mridangam player, playing first time with a drum player, collaborating with the Beatles and with so many other great artists, John Handy and Yehudi Menuhin and all those people. So yeah, so he was the first one in, of course, with Pandit Ravi Shankar ji to cross these boundaries.
Right.
So that album for me, I must have been maybe 7 years old, 6 years old. But I think this was in '68 or something, or maybe '69. So I must have been 7 years old. And I remember as a child, I would wait for my older sister to come from college. And in those days, there were only LPs. And in the whole day, I would hear that LP at least 4 or 5 or 6 times. And not the tabla sound, yes, would attract me, but it's the drum sound which was attracting me. And I was like, what is this sound? What is it? That press roll that Buddy Rich is very famous for. What is this sound? I was like attracted. So I guess that collaboration made me realize as a kid also that there's so much more in rhythm that can be explored. And then as a kid, I would enjoy R.D. Burman songs, especially the Duniya Mein Logo Ko. So that breathing rhythm, I would just go bonkers. I would go mad at that sound, all that
Yeah,
R.D. Burman used to do. And, so I would go bonkers, and the whole day I would go around doing these that and all these sounds as a kid. And my mother would be like, "Arey, kya kar raha hai? Pagal ho gaya hai." Anyway, so I guess those are my first, you can say, influences, impacts of world music, which came in my ear and which affected me. That when I grew up and when I went into college, and then and of course, the biggest influence is band Shakti, with John McLaughlin, Zakir Bhai, Viku Vinayak Ramji, and L. Shankar ji. That band is the biggest impact on world music ever, I feel. After Pandit Ravi Shankar and after the
of
collaboration.
Western improvisational fusion music, period. That is
Beautiful.
that is the grammar. That is the Renan Martin for fusion music, as we know it.
So yeah, so that was another big impact on me, and so I basically, uh, you know, your I'm saying when I grew up, I went through all these things, and then, of course, your thing about the djembe. Yes, djembe and me fell in love with each other the moment I put my hands on him. And actually, I had the djembe with me for many years, even before I started exploring, because Zakir Bhai had gifted me a 10-inch djembe, Remo djembe. But I had just it was there in all my instruments. I had many instruments at the time. I was working in the film industry, doing recordings and stuff like that. So I would use those instruments also. But one day when I was recording something for one of my albums, I started playing a fast composition which can be called a rela, which is like a rela. And I realized, oh, this is sounding like Appaji's of course, I was doing it in 9 beats. So I said, "Oh, this is sounding like the rela." Okay, so if that is possible, then maybe I should try to explore. Because you see, Appaji's knowledge, I always wanted it to be defined or experienced on other surface.
Sure.
The tabla was there. I mean, for me, it's always there. Whatever I'm doing is the tabla. I'm not playing anything else. I'm not playing the djembe like how the Africans play. Although I respect that playing, and I'm in tremendous awe of people like Muhammad Dikita, who is a fabulous djembe player. But what I'm an Indian, and I have the Indian knowledge. So I want to define that, and I felt that the tabla knowledge. I'm not defining the sound, because the tabla is one of the most versatile percussion instrument ever made. And the sound of the baya, the chati together, is something which cannot ever be replicated.
Absolutely.
So, but
about that, which I will.
there is this knowledge. This knowledge can be defined on any surface. It can be your breath, it can be the djembe, the drums. So I was always looking for something where I could define Abbaji's knowledge. And then when I got this djembe in my hand, it was like, I can do something with this. And that's where my experiments started, my exploration started, and I created a whole language for the djembe,
Right.
and then I'm still working on it.
Wow. Okay, so let me see if I can phrase this rightly. You grew up in a family of tabla legends. I mean, the biggest legends that there are.
Yeah.
What was the transition into adopting the playing technique on the djembe drum, being an African instrument, and then subsequently incorporating a completely unique technique which you have done in order to accommodate a repertoire such as Indian classical tabla, which is by itself a Herculean task to do on the tabla itself.
Yeah.
The technique, how did that, tell me about that journey. Tell us about how, I mean, because what you do on the djembe, like, you know, the djembe I was reading up says Anke J, Anke Be, which means please gather around in peace. A drum that was made primarily for group drumming. And
Yes.
then, you know, developed in West Africa as a solo instrument much later. But you adopted this into our classical music on that instrument, and then you changed the finger and hand techniques to accommodate a repertoire such vast repertoire as tabla. How was that journey? How would please?
Well, I would say for me, the inspirations have been from my childhood. I have seen Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma ji, how he brought the santoor, which is a folk instrument from Kashmir, into classical music. And we've known Shivji for like since years. He was a great friend of Abbaji's and a great friend of Zakir Bhai, and like a father figure to us. And we spent a lot of time with him, and he used to tell us many times, Bhabiji, his wife, used to tell us how Shivji has struggled. So for me, there's an inspiration that, you know, santoor has been brought in classical music, and great effort by Shivji, and inspiration. Then U. Srinivasji, again a great inspiration for me, although he was younger, but fabulous musician, someone I would look up to, the kind of music he's done. But he's brought mandolin into the mainstream Carnatic classical music. So I think that these people are my inspirations. And that's not why I took to the djembe. I took to the djembe because I love the sound of the djembe, and I realized the tabla knowledge can be defined onto this. Of course, this is one instrument. There are two instruments over there, baya and chati. So that was a little difficult for me because I had to decode maybe even a straight dha din din da. And I know that baya has the facility of, you know, the kamak, and you can press the baya and create notes. You can do a kind of a kamak on the baya, which is not possible here.
Right.
But I decided that, you know, well, as in the santoor, there is no possibility of a meend.
Right, absolutely.
Right? But how Shivji is managing it, you know? How did he manage that? A meend, how did he manage to create that whole alapi form, you know, which is a difficult thing in a percussive instrument. So that led me to think, okay, I can do this, you know, I can define, maybe I cannot do the kamaki or a you know, like a resonance baya, but I can play around with the dynamics. I can play around with the volume in order to create, like, you know, if there is dhate dhagena dhate dhagena dhagatina gina dhagena dhaga is the baya gena dhaga. So I can do that with little bit of a accent somewhere more and less, you know. Dhata. So in my language, dhati dhagena becomes dhepa dheta dhenana. Dheta dhenana. Dhati dhagena dheta dhenana. So dhati dhagena dhati dhagena dheta dhenana dheta dhenana dhena tuntunana. So giving an accent on that.
Right. So it's
Give me the feel of dheta dhagena dhati dhagena dhaga dhagena dhaga dhenana dhenana dhena. Punctuating over there is what made me think that, okay, I can do this. So that decoding took a while, a long while, and it's still going on because the tabla repertoire is huge, as you know, is huge. So decode everything. I'm just now basically still recording the Punjab Gharana things. The
Right.
other Gharanas are still there, there's Ajrala, there's Delhi, there's Farrukhabad, Lucknow. So there's a lot of things, So I'm really in the initial stage, although, and I've been given a lot of encouragement by my colleagues, by my seniors who have heard me and who have uh, praised my work. And I'm really thankful to them because that gives me a great feeling and gives me a feeling like, okay, I'm on the right track. I'm not on the wrong track. So that makes me feel good. Suresh Dada, Sapan Dada, Kumar Dada, Zakir Bhai, Anindo Da, so many, and my colleagues also, my own Guru Bhais, they've all given me so much of encouragement. So that is what is pushing me. And I've always wanted to push myself beyond, because I want to evolve as a musician. I don't want to. So I was tabla, I was doing classical music. I branched off into film music. I did a lot of film music, doing rhythm programming, playing live percussions since, you can say like almost 89 to 98. Then I went into fusion music, where I had my band Surya, where Salim Merchant was a part of it, and Niladri Kumar and Surya Sarthi, Shankar Mahadevan, and so many were part of that band. Did a lot of fusion music. Then I realized, what am I doing? What about my classical music? And I came back to the djembe. I found the djembe. I started decoding it. In between, I was feeling I want to do something unique. I started doing voice percussions, doing something which I felt that nobody else is doing, using the breath as an instrument. So I've always evolved as a musician, and I still want to evolve. I'm still evolving. Yeah.
I mean, we absolutely, and not only evolving. You are, what you are doing is helping hugely in the evolution of Indian classical music as a whole, because not only have you introduced another instrument from another continent, from another aesthetic group altogether, but you have seamlessly blended these two things. It never seems to me when you play that Djembe was not an Indian classical drum. It never seems like
Thank
that.
you very much.
Because the
Coming from you, I will really thank you because you are a fantastic musician. And I've heard you, and I've heard your technique. You have a different technique of defining the relas and all these things, which is amazing. So yeah,
again
thank you very
inspired by
much.
you, Tawfiq, very, very much inspired by you. The first time I saw you live at playing with Masters of Percussion at the Town Hall in New York. This
Yeah,
was
yeah.
In the early 2000s, if you remember that concert.
Yes.
Sultan Khan Sahab had broken his sarangi string that night
Challenging. Yes.
for that concert. So ever since I saw you doing that and a multi-percussionist, the way you have incorporated a rela or playing a chakradar like the way you have, and the djembe, I'm very little experience, of course. I mean, I've played it a couple of times into recordings and stuff, but it also has a great difference of treble and bass in the center.
Yes.
So how you have taken that within a single instrument and compensated for the fact that you don't have a baya or you don't have the two bass and treble separators, but it seamlessly blends into
That's
one.
also because what I realized. Usually, djembe, when you hear djembe players, they only mic the top. What I realized, that in order to get a good bass, which I can even control with my hand, with my this thing, I started miking the bottom also, a little
Right.
bit, not exactly inside, but a little outside, so that I will get two different EQs. So that bass EQ is a different EQ, and mids and treble is coming from the top. So I did that, and that's what is making the difference, where the baya is being compensated, because the bottom of the bass, especially a 12-inch, a 10-inch djembe, the bass is beautifully nice and round.
Yeah.
And if one can control that bass, because you see, if you don't control bass while playing the djembe, that whole bass can become like if I'm playing like it can become like that, because the
Right.
bass is very powerful. So I have to control the bass with my mute also. When I play the bass with my right hand, when I play, leave it, so there is a resonance.
Right.
But while singing, I'm also muting with the wrist.
Right.
While I'm singing, I'm muting with the wrist. So then that resonance gets captured.
Right.
That resonance doesn't spread too much. So that technique I had to develop, So I see Djembe, there is the tabla technique, there is a conga technique in there, there is a ghatam technique that I've involved, and the pakhawaj bass technique, because the bass pakhawaj is played like this with full hand, full hand, the cut also. So it's a combination of all these elements uh, which have come into play for me to create what I would say as the Djembe Baj.
Djembe Baz. Beautiful, beautiful. What a term. What a term. I mean, we have to, but the thing is that, what I have felt like, even though melodic instruments, violin or like Kadri ji has incorporated the saxophone into Carnatic music.
Yes, of course. Of
Even,
course.
but in the case of Shivji, what he had done is he introduced the concept of trills, with which he
Yes.
was playing and getting around, compensating for the mead aspect of a melody instrument.
Yes. The alap form. Yeah.
He's also modified the santoor. He brought it down from 100 to 84 strings, and he's done a little, couple of things here and there to tweak the instrument itself. But you have not done that. You've kept the djembe pure the way the instrument is. But you're playing
Yes, I
it
have.
unique, and this is so. I was, this is something I've been wondering. So, like for example, Banaras Gharana, there is a lot of modulation in anything that they play and the way they play it. So I was wondering what your thoughts are about how one would represent, like for example, something like Ghena, like a Farukabad Qaida, which is based on the modulation of the fire. How would you approach something like that on a djembe?
Well, I approach something with the pure idea of enjoying whatever I'm doing. Basically, that's the most important thing. What for me, if I'm playing something, if it is sounding good to me and if I'm enjoying it, then I'm in a way sure that when it's in front of us, then that audience is also going to enjoy.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. Oops. Oh,
I need to first enjoy myself. So that's how I approach. And then I try to see if I'm playing Ghina, Dhagena, Dhagena, Dhatri, Ghina, Ghina. So I created my language. It's Dhena, Dhenana, Dhenana, Dhete, Kla, Dhete, Dhete, Kla, Dhete, Dhatre, Kla, Dhete, Ko, Dhete, Kla, Dhete, Kiya hai maine. So there is a little bit of I'm not playing Thra. As you know, Thra is played with these two fingers like a flam.
right, yeah.
Right? So I'm compensating. I'm not playing tre. I'm playing dhate. I'm playing te.
Okay.
So I'm playing dhena, dhena na dha, dhena na dhete kla dhete ta, dhena tuntun nana. So tinna is coming from the chati tinna, and ghinna is baya ka ghe and na. So for me, tinna ghinna is see, I cannot play two syllables together on the djembe.
Right.
Because it will mute. It will get into a mute. So Tinna Ghinna became Tuntun Nana for me. Tuntun Nana.
And is that a single finger stroke?
No, it's a double stroke on the right, Tuntun Nana double stroke, and on the left hand, Nana is a double stroke. So it's a double stroke, Tuntun Nana. And then Dhenna Ghinna became Dheta Nana. Dheta is on the baya, on the bass. I'll demonstrate it soon. Dheta, and Nana is from the hand. So I compensated like that. And then is also so like tirikit tak ta tirikit or dha tirikit tak tirikit. Dhipa kita kita. Dha tirikit became dhipa kita kita for me. Dhipa kita kita tepa kita kita. So I'm doing
unique
so
syllable.
there is a syllable called pa on the djembe which I created. So it's Dhipa, or if I'm playing very fast, then pa may not be possible. So I do dheta kita kita keta keta kita kita, which I'll demonstrate. So it's dheta kita kita teta kita kita or dhipa kita kita tepa kita kita. Okay. Now while saying fast, I can do dhera kita kita tera kita kita. Instead of saying dheta, I can do dhera, right? Like how you guys also do dhatir, but when you're saying fast, it becomes dhatitakita. Dhatitakita becomes dhatirakita, right? That.
Yeah, of course, of course.
So then so this is how I started decoding. So I would like to try and demonstrate Gina Dagina Dha Dagina Dhatikina with your kind permission. I will just try that.
Permission, Taufiq ji, this is our privilege and this is a gift for all of us.
I don't know if you can see the. Let me see if it's possible for you to see the djembe. Oops, sorry.
I can see one hemisphere.
Go back.
Yeah, perfect, perfect, Taufiq.
So one important thing for the djembe, which is common with the tabla, is the powder.
Okay, right.
We need that.
Right.
So, Gina Dhagena Dha becomes Gina Dhagena Dha Dhina 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 Nadha. Dhagena Dhatikra Dhitita. So, Dhatikra Dhitita. Dhinna Dhinna Gina. Dhina Dhagena Dha Dhagena Dhatikra Dhitita Dhinna Dhinna Gina. Dhatikra Dhitita Gina Dhati Gina Dhatikra Dhitita Gina Dhinna Gina. Tinna tinna ginna tatikra tittita tatikra tittita kinna tinna ginna. Dhina dhaginna dhatikra dhatita ginna tinna. So. So that way, then, in that sense, then, that is how I started defining, decoding the language of the tabla onto the instrument.
My God, I mean, so it's a Herculean task, Taufiq ji. Having learned tabla when you're playing a ding dina again, it's a completely right hand action. When you're playing it on the djembe, the ding dina is on your left hand.
Because I am a lefty.
Okay, that is fine. Okay,
I'm a khabba. You know, somebody recently asked me that, how is it that in your family there are all righties? Zakir Bhai, Fazal Bhai, and Abbaji, they're all righties. I'm the only lefty in the family. So somebody asked me why so? I said I don't know. Maybe because my father's guru, Mayookh Bhaumik, he was a khabba. He was a khabba. He was a lefty. And I remember as a kid, I was just having fun playing, and I would play with the left hand. And many senior students told Abbaji that, "Arey Abbaji, ye khabba ho raha hai. Why don't you try to change him to righty?" And my father said, no, let it be. If he is naturally getting into a lefty, it's all right. Because my ustad was also lefty. So somewhere from a childhood, we've been hearing stories of Mayookh Bhaumik ji, how his playing was from Abbaji, and how he was a lefty. So I guess somewhere that influence must be there, listening, and maybe an Abbaji's and Miyaji's photo used to be there in our house, playing, and I could see that he's a lefty. So maybe that's where it came, and I must have started playing lefty, so
right.
I'm a lefty.
You're playing the cricket on the right hand. You're essential.
No, I'm doing. I'll tell you. I'll show you. So, Tha tirikita tak tirikita. So I'm doing. See, I can't do tha like that because then it will mute. So I'm doing. So tha tirikita, tha kita kita, kita kita. So. Okay. Now, when I'm doing so you guys are playing
Right.
right? I'm doing I'm doing so I'm doing one note extra rather than doing no. I'm not doing that. I'm doing so this is a puck for me.
So there are consecutive strokes on the index finger which you're doing, which makes it so much harder to play.
Also, my style of playing djembe is not, but why? Because this way, in the mic, there are many times harmonics which come out. And sometimes those harmonics are not in the pitch because whenever I accompany somebody or if I'm playing a solo also, the 12-inch djembe I will tune to D. So do. So when it's like open stroke like that, there are many harmonics which come out which disturb.
F sharp. And
so my style of playing is not, but so I'm muting while I'm playing so that those harmonics are not heard. Even when I'm playing bass, I'm muting with this.
With the wrist, the heel of the palm. Wow.
Otherwise, if you put a bottom mic and boom, it goes like that.
Okay.
So if I'm playing, so I'm doing. So I developed this style of playing rather than because of the harmonics and because the sound resonates a lot then. You know?
That is
and it is very difficult to control with any EQ also because if one has to EQ and control it, then this whole sound becomes very different. The djembe sound.
Yeah, absolutely. But the amount of resonance that you have incorporated in order to bring the tabla aesthetic, the aesthetic of that repertoire and that musicality out is just absolutely perfect. That balance is like, because the djembe does have a lot of unwanted harmonic information if you ring it out. So
yes, it does.
How to face this challenge, TAUFIQ ji, again, Shashtang pranam to you. I mean, for having, because
thank you.
I mean, I can't imagine. First of all, you've learned the tabla, and then so how we play with the three fingers. You've learned that. Then you've had to unlearn that and relearn another whole technique, and then develop. My God, I mean, this is. I mean, for all the young musicians and artists. So, a lot of musicians are watching today.
So basically, this is a conga technique.
Yes.
The slap, which is also there on the djembe. This is the pakhawas technique. This is the ghatam technique. This is the ghatam. This is the way they play ghatam. So this is a technique which I learned from Vikuji. the
Right.
Khatam by.
Talk separately about that also, like your
So this technique is that. So I can do with both hands. So when I'm doing faster thing, so I can, so the incorporation of all these techniques of drumming, the power, the gatam, the conga, the djembe, also the djembe, of course, itself. All these have incorporated, like I said earlier, in bringing all that knowledge, Abaji's knowledge, onto this instrument.
fantastic. I mean, I have no words to express like how I have not heard the detail of how you developed it. Like for example, my question would be, how do you what would be the Djembe Baj for dhere dhere?
For
Dhere dhere.
Dhira Dhira is something which I have avoided because Abbaji also never played the Dhira Dhira. Because I see I can do it. So for example, let's say तातेरे किट घिर धीरे धीरे किट तक धातेरे किट तक तुन्ना किट तक तातेरे किट किर धीरे धीरे किट तक so you know तो धीरे धीरे आप लोग करते हैं आई डू है ना तो धीरे धीरे करता है धीरे धीरे करता है धीरे धीरे करता है धीरे धीरे करता है so all these decoding has been it's still going on, you know.
Still going on. But I mean, the amount that has been decoded, and this is actually when you're playing alternate strokes between this and this to do dedicated, you're actually making life even more difficult for yourself compared to this, you know, like because you're also having to mute.
Yeah.
In order to
the resonance.
Of the in, you're having to mute this.
The bass, I have to mute the bass every time I'm hitting it. So that technique of so what that does is so when I'm doing a double, I'm
okay.
So, almost like a double bass kind of do. So you know, I'm almost like it's almost like I'm giving a master class over here.
No. I mean, TAUFIQ ji, this is. By the way, I will tell you that we have the most amount of traffic on the Insta lives that I've been doing so far, and you know the people that I've done it with, people, you know, Bikramda and George Brooks and Tejinda and all these people. I have the maximum audience today.
Look, I'm sure you say that. I'm sure you say that to everyone who comes on your show. I'm quite sure.
Check my Insta live sessions. I've sent you the links. Please check. I'm not lying. We have an amazing.
No, I'm just pulling your leg here. I'm just pulling your leg.
I know. TAUFIQ ji, with your permission, I would like to ask this on a public forum. I'm going to go through this Insta video many times and see if I can incorporate back some of your techniques into the tabla. The way you have set fingerings, that will create different kind of aesthetics and bowls for the tabla. If I replaced, you know, alternatively.
Please, you have my permission and you can do it. And in fact, show me also, then I can show other musicians here how it can be done, you know.
Yeah, I mean, let me first, you know, figure it out. Then I will, you know, gather the courage to come up to you and say,
no. Please.
Because your dhere dhere technique is something that would create a very interesting baj on the tabla itself, because nobody's really done the alternate between like your left hand.
Yes, I've done the alternate thing.
So
It, in a way, makes the dhir easier. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But because of this movement, on the tabla, your wrist is going like faster.
yeah,
I'm doing it with the fingers. So,
right.
so with the finger, the speed after a point there is a limit to this thing. Whereas this movement can go much faster. I mean, that's why I'm saying.
Right.
But of course, doing this technique might create a different kind of a feel to the dhir.
That's what I was thinking. That's and I need your blessings to be able to do that. Of course, I will definitely try.
Why not?
So, you made a benchmark album. This was my introduction to you in my life with the album Ridhun. That was I bought this back in 2000 when it came out, and been an illustrious composer and an arranger and a producer. I still remember that video where Zakirji also featured and Shankar Mahadevan, and you were walking on the street and the bowls and all that. So
all three of us were there.
Huh?
All three of us were there in that video.
All three of you were there, and then so that changed that album changed our lives, like in terms of as percussionists, the use of bowls, the use of parant, which of course you've done in many other. So just tell me one thing, as a composer, as an arranger, how has the understanding that you've had to have as of melody, of the entire realm of melody, harmony, chords, scales, modes, the whole non-rhythmic aspect of music, how does that influence you back as a soloist or accompanist when you're playing the djembe? And how does your avatar as a solo, like when you're composing and playing, you're collaborating with your own various avatars, right? Like TAUFIQ QURESHI ji, the composer, is working with TAUFIQ QURESHI ji, the soloist percussionist, with the multi-percussionist, with the arranger. You're all collaborating. 5 of you are playing together. How does that collaboration work in terms of your experience?
Well, it's really, in a way, this question of yours brings out a very important aspect that I want to say, because you're right that me I'm a composer. I'm also the percussionist inside, and I'm also the programmer, because I do the programming also, melodic and rhythmic, and I'm also the arranger because I do the arrangement. So many times between all these 4 TAUFIQ QURESHI, there's a clash. Many times it happens, and that's why I will do something and then I will listen to it and I will not like it. So the arranger will not like maybe some part of the composition.
Right.
But in my mind, the composer is saying, well, this is fine. This is how it should be. This is how the line should be. But the arranger is many times saying that no, because the arrangement that will follow to this may be similar to what I have done in the mukla. So the antara might sound repetitive, because the arrangement behind, the chord arrangement, the progression would be the same. So change it. So there are all these clashes which happen, and I'm happy, because as four entities, if there are 4 guys in a room, and one is an arranger, one is a programmer, one is a composer, one is the performer, there will always be a clash. So that clash leads to something good, So yes, but I have not learned composing or harmonies, or I don't write music. I still can't write. Although I can program, I can do chords, I can do harmony, but I've never learned keyboard or piano or anything. It all happened by default. Because when I was working in the film industry as a rhythm programmer, in those days, electronic music was just kicking into India. Talking about 88, 89, 87, 88. So 87 actually. When I started working.
Show you something. May I show you something from the 80s where I started programming on a drum machine?
Yeah. Please.
Just give me 1 second. I have to show you this.
Okay, I'll entertain the audience till Mayookh is back. He's back. Oh yeah. Wow.
Do you remember this?
Yes, of course.
I was 12 years old and I started working on the LS's HR16 drum machine. And
I used to work on my first rhythm machine was the Roland 626.
626, yes, of course.
Yes, which was a very limited thing. Then I got the R8,
Hmm.
Roland
The
R8, which
black
had,
one. The black one.
yeah, the black one, and the R8 also had the facility of separate cards, which where you can load separate sounds,
Sample
and
card.
all that I used to through MIDI go onto my octopad, and I have played in many film songs using the cake hi-hat snare and the timbali for dhol and all that. And then I got the
We've all used
sequencer,
Himalaya patrol.
MC80 sequencer I got. So I'm saying what I did was we a lot of us invested into electronics, and in those days these things were very expensive and not available in India.
Right.
So Salim Merchant's father, we used to all call him Sadru Bhai. He was the one who used to help us. He would, through his sources, get electronic instruments into here, and he would give it to us. And many of us who were who he used to like, because those were expensive instruments, and we couldn't get loans from banks, right, to do this. So he would tell us, okay, pay me in installments. And I was one of them. So if something cost around 30,000, 40,000, he gave me the facility. In every month, you pay me 3,000. So then, in 10 months, I could pay that. So that's really very nice of him. I will always remember that.
Hey, Taufiq ji, where
That my Salim as a kid, he spent a lot of time with me, and we are still very close. So, so I invested in that, and I got a Ensoniq keyboard, and which was at those days it was about 70,000, So, but we managed to do it. But I got the keyboard. But what am I going to do? I just can't do rhythm on it, So my wife said, you should do some melodic things also. But I said I can't because I've not learned. So she said, you spend so much of time with musicians, you should consult them, discuss with them. So I said, that's a good idea. So my colleagues, while we used to do a lot of programming in those days. I used to work with Manraj Bhatia on background score for the Damini, and then Himalaya Putra and Ghatak, and then so many other films, Drohkal and all. So while the programming is going on, I would sit next to my colleagues like Anjan Da and Sunil Kaushik and Sanjay Vanjarekar, and I would see them program, and I would ask them, what are you doing? Okay, what is this chord? Okay, how do you do? And they were nice enough to explain to me, they were very kind enough to explain to me, okay, Tawfiq, this is a major, it's a minor, it's an augmented, a diminished, and whatever, this is how you do it. And this, so that's how I learned. And then whatever they would say, I would come and I would practice it. And then simple basic exercises they showed for the keyboard playing, and I would keep doing that in my spare time. And that's how I learned. That's how I learned. So if you ask me, Tawfiq, what harmony are you playing? I will not be able to tell you. But I know whatever sounds good to my ear as a harmony, as a chord progression, I will do it. But I will not be able to write it down because I can't write music. And I will not be able to tell you. I can tell you, okay, I've done an A major and I've gone to a major, say I've gone to a B sus or a, and then I've gone to a C minor and all that. But I will not be able to write it down because I can't write it.
Writing
So
is
I
only
learned music. I learned chords and kind of writing harmonies. I mean, doing harmonies just by ear, just by default. So, but I realized as I progressed as a musician, that really helped me in my album Ridhun, in my album Bombay Fever, in my album Colors of Rajasthan, in my so many other albums, And then when I started working, uh, doing programming for other music directors, that helped me. When I started working with Pritam and with SEL, Shankar Ehsaan Loy, and later on with so many other music directors. So really, I mean,
fantastic.
I feel, I feel that, like I always told you, I've always evolved as a musician. I've always evolved. And I'm still evolving.
We are all inspired by you tremendously, and we are trying to do the same thing, find new languages, find new voices. I have to come to your illustrious Bollywood work that we are nuts about, because like I am absolutely for example, Dil Chahta Hai is a film and a bunch of songs that changed our perception of Bollywood films altogether. What Farhan Akhtar did with
Yes.
Khan and Saif and all of that, and the songs, the music that Shankar Ji and Shankar Ehsaan Loy put together. So in that respect, I have to first ask you a question about the song Tanhai, which you designed the rhythm for. In that song, Tawfiq ji, um, Tanhai, the Djembe is a character. It's a motif, and
Yeah.
it is essentially a part of the musical identity of that song. When I think about Tanhai, I do dum, da, dum, da, da, dum, da, dum, and he's walking in Australia. I remember associate every part of that song with that rhythm. So tell us
Yeah.
about that experience. Tell us about how that happened.
Well, first and foremost, I would like to really thank Shankar and Loy, because they are the first guys who gave me a free hand to work on rhythmic ideas. And that actually brought out the rhythm arranger in me in a very big way. I was always doing it in small works and all that, but this was a very big project, Even at, so this is before we go. So, and I will always be indebted to them, because they really, and till date, when I worked with them on Bhag Milka Bhag, Havan Karenge also, they just gave me a free hand and I created that very famous rhythm for Havan Karenge song. But each song, I remember Shankar was in the studio and I came, and Shankar said, "This is a song." So there was only this boom, beep, boom, boom, beep, boom,
That bass
boom,
line,
boom,
that
boom, beep.
didgeridoo line or something, no?
Yeah. Huh?
That was a didgeridoo line or something.
No, that was the bass line which Loy had put down,
Sure.
and there was this song with a high percussion loop going on. And I remember Shankar said, "For Tawfiq, you start doing things over here, and I'll see you tomorrow," because they wind up early, and I was in another recording and I reached late, and then I said, "Okay." So I started working, and I worked till very late night, and I created this whole, Middle Eastern, like a, thum, pa, boom, boom,
Frame
pa,
drum.
yeah, like the frame drums. I have this tar drums, so I created whole this frame drum and djembe and the darbuka feel. And I packed up and I went in the night. Next day, Shankar.
Very Arabic sound, very Arabic group, and big, huge sound. That song.
Yes. So it's only me. I did about some 15 to 20 layers of these frame drums and djembe and the darbuka and high percussions and all that. And I came home. Shankar next day came early and he heard the song and he called me and he said, "What have you done with the song?" I said, "Maybe I did something wrong." And he said, "It's sounding amazing,
Yeah.
And I was very happy. And the studio where he was working was not very far from my house. So I went there and then he and me added other elements also to, some higher beat shakers and this and that. If you've heard that song, da, 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 in between interlude music, there's only rhythm going.
That loop.
Yeah, so we put some beat shakers, some triangle and some cymbal in the gaps of 4 bars and 2 bars, and so he's just said, let it just be this rhythm. This is like like how they have these matams and they have this boom, pa, boom, boom, pa, boom. They have these rhythms, So he said, let's just keep this rhythm going, And it was a brilliant idea of his,
Yeah, but
so
it down, and the idea was to not interrupt that. Is what I'm
yes,
trying to say,
this is law. हमारे में कैसे एक law होती है, law. चलन एक चलन होता है, law होता है, वो चलता रहता है, उसी में मजा आता है,
Absolutely.
So they used to let this chalan keep going.
It is so addictive. It's like a motive, like one, like for example, when we think of silsila, we think of songs and we think of flute lines in the song, because that becomes like associated with the melody. And what is most amazing to me about particularly this song is the fact that it's a very intimate song about a tragedy in a guy's life.
Yeah.
But it's a very personal moment, and he's going through a personal struggle, but there is a vastness to the fact that everything and the world around him is kind of falling apart, and that vastness, that hugeness is what your rhythm brings to the song, which is
yes, correct, you're right, but I'll tell you, the way Farhan has shot this song, I mean, the whole film is brilliantly shot, kind of directed by him, but the way he directed this song, it's amazing. It's really amazing. I mean, it really shows the frustration, the desperation, and the love this guy has. And Amir Khan, of course, is a brilliant actor. The way he's emulated in that song and the way the song has been shot. I mean,
Yeah,
all in all, the way the song has come through, the composition, maybe the arrangement, all the rhythm, the shooting, and the acting and the direction, it's just brilliant in this song.
everything in that film, everything starting from the screenplay to the rhythm design is absolutely flawless. Like I mean, that was the first time that they used a time lapse and hyperlapse in a Bollywood film.
Yeah.
You know, and we were like, you know, that was our hangout film, which is why I know these songs so well. It is because, you know, like we used to live in New York at that time, and me and my brother, if we, you know, felt a little upset, we would put on Dil Chahta Hai, watch one song, and then go to sleep. You know, and that was our childhood. You know, that was our teen years. And then, you know, so all this working, like after that, there's another question. Tawfiq ji, I cannot possibly finish this
I know.
you, because you know, the time is running out. But would you be opposed to doing another 10-15 minute segment if we don't go through this?
No,
Because
let's take a break. I know that you can only do about 57 minutes, 55 minutes, whatever.
right,
So we'll just disconnect and I'll log on again and we'll do it.
okay, okay. So yeah, because I don't want this question to get interrupted by Instagram algorithm.
That's
So
fine.
I will log off
I
and I will log back in, and we go through the same process again.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
ladies and gentlemen, the Maestro will be with us again on Insta Live right after this, within 2 minutes. Please stay tuned and stay with us. This conversation is beyond anything that we've done so. And it seems like we are live. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. What a conversation! What a conversation! I mean, this episode of Unlock Jam Room is beyond epic. It is beyond anything that I've done so far, because the Maestro Taufiq Qureshi has redefined so many things in the way we understand our own music, in the way we understand world music, in the way we understand fusion music, in the way we even perceive Bollywood music the way it is right now. And I will be getting into a couple of different other aspects of his illustrious career, you know, and discuss the things that he has done in the world of advertising, and so on and so forth. Thank you everybody for joining. I am waiting for Maestro Taufiq ji to join the Insta Live, and it seems like he is here. I will wait for his request and we will continue this conversation. This is for every musician that is with us today. Please, you know, make note of every word that this man is saying, because he hails from the greatest family of musicians that we know of, and he is here now. Please pay attention, and I'm waiting for Tawfiq ji to show back up here. Welcome back, Pranam Tawfiq ji. Welcome back. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayookh. Thank you.
This is such so much of interaction. So many young boys and girls are watching the show and asking questions. I will take a few questions towards the end of this session, but we are having so much of fun. And Tawfiq ji, thank you so much for indulging and humoring me on this show. This is a great honor. It is absolutely a great honor.
Once again, Mayookh, thank you so much for having me on your show, and it's really giving me a good feeling, a good vibe that I'm sharing a lot of my things that I've been working on, my struggle and my work, and it's reaching out to so many young audience and other audience through you. Thank you very much.
It's our honor. It is my honor and our honor to have you. Tawfiq ji, about your you know, to continue with your illustrious career, you have done some amazing work in advertising, in jingles that you have created, and particularly, I wanted to ask you, the idea that I have is, you know, advertising in itself is a phenomenon, and advertising in the form of film, ad films, and jingles are a form of expression with a purpose that is different from, let's say, just an album or a concert or a film song. They're all different. Now, how important is it for you to have an understanding of what advertising is and a sensibility of the marketing aspect of that, in order to be able to create something the way you have created the ad for Indian Railways? I mean, it blows my mind how somebody can, Rail Gadi, that song that was used in that was initially it was sung by Ashok Kumarji, as far as I remember, and
Ashok Kumar ji.
right, and then you had Sudesh Bosaji sing. It's a popular song. Everybody knows the song, but the signature of that ad film and that jingle is what you have done to it. How you brought rhythms of stomping and breath and paran and just human body rhythms. That creates a signature that makes it stand out immediately out of all the things that are happening. And so just tell us about that experience, because how did how did you create that?
Well, when the ad guys, the production house came to me for a jingle, I reached the studio and I didn't know what we were working on, except that it was something for Indian Railways. And then when we spoke, and then they said we want to create a very unique track. Of course, the song will be Rail Gadi. So I said, well, that's great. And then both me and the client and the director both said that it would be better to have somebody who can imitate in Ashok Kumar's voice. I said, yeah, but then let's call Sudesh ji, because he can do that. And so he was called. And then I decided to create the whole track using voice percussion, body percussion, like stomping and all, and using the breath. I said, let's create the whole track using only human voices and human body percussion, even the whistle of the train and everything. So we created an a cappella track with Sudesh doing the Ashok Kumar's voice, and I created this whole thing. And for me, my voice is one of my favorite instruments because I can do a lot. I can do a lot. Actually, like I told you, since that whole thing of getting influenced by R.D. Burman, I have been working on a lot of vocal techniques where I do the didgeridoo, I do the monk sound. I've taken the all this Punjabi folk rhythms in the voice.
Your voice is one of all of our favorite instruments. That's the truth.
So I told the client, I said, let's do this. Let's create a whole track using voice percussion. So they were first a little, as is the case, a client is always apprehensive. I said, okay, let me try doing something, There's still time for Sudesh ji to come. And so let me try. So I'll take a couple of hours, and I took a couple of hours and I did all the voice percussions, and I called some chorus guys and they did the whistle sound. And
right.
I brought, in the studio, I brought a metal frame and I did stamping on it to create that it's going over a bridge. It's going over a bridge, stamping and all. I did all these things, and the clients were all like, actually, they were all blown away by seeing me doing all these things. And as the time progressed, they also started having faith in me. Okay, what this guy is doing is not just time pass, he's doing something well. Because they started realizing how the train rhythm is coming, how the breath is coming, and how this thing. And by the time Sudesh ji came, I created this whole track. And then Sudesh ji came, and he's such a fabulous man. He knew the song because he's done it so many times,
Right.
He just 2-3 takes, he was out of the studio. He just did his job and he went off. Wow. And then they made the film, and once this film went to Cannes, and I think this film has been directed by this very famous guy, Prakash Verma, who did this film. He's known as Verma in the ad world. So he, I think, shot the film and he directed the film. And when it went for Cannes, this film got the goal for best use of music.
Right.
And the music is always vocal percussions, and I'm fortunate to be part of this great Indian Railways film. So I had, for me, creating rhythm using voice, like I did this jingle for for Nike called Parallel Journey. So the history, I'll take 2 minutes to speak about it. I
I
was
want to
working
ask
with
specific questions about that jingle also.
So I was working with Dhruv Ghanekar. He was the composer, and I was there. I was doing all these live percussions, and we created a whole track using Legium drums and this and that and everything. And the film went for to the client, and the client didn't like it very much. They were
This was
they were
first.
like, okay, हाँ अच्छा है, अच्छा नहीं भी है, okay चलेगा. Can you do something different? So I was called again, and I said to Dhruv, I said, Dhruv, why don't we try using voice percussion? And like he also had the faith in me. He said, okay, Tawfiq bhai, you try something. And I went up behind the mic and I took about 4 5 hours and I created this whole layer of sounds using breath and everything matching to the film. And then well, when the client heard it with all this vocal percussions, the whole Indian cricket team getting ready and all, and especially the end, the whole progression in using Padhant. And that really blew them off, and they just loved it. And this film won the gold and the London Film Festival.
Yeah.
So
And
I'm fortunate
even the
to be part
idea.
of this track, and I would say thanks to Dhruv also for giving me a free hand to work on this Nike Parallel Journeys.
See, that is the mark of a great composer, Tawfiq ji. As like when you bring somebody on board, when you bring the right person on board, it is the feature of the mark of a great composer, where he knows where not to interrupt, where not to
Correct.
get in the way and be dictatorial or something. Somebody who's brought you into the realm, just let him do his thing, that is the greatness of someone like Dhruv Ghanekar, who is such an illustrious composer. I wanted to ask you about that particular jingle. That jingle builds up, and the edit of that jingle is fantastic. That film is so well edited, and the rhythm, the build up, the way you're using the breath is almost like a chopped up white noise kind of an effect happening. And
Yeah.
then there is some kind of a vocal chop happening somewhere where vocal was diced, and there's something
Yeah.
like that happens in the middle of a stutter. But towards the end, when the Indian cricket team goes into the field outside, comes out from the pavilion, the rhythm changes into 6/8.
Yeah.
Whose
It
idea
does.
was that, and how did that happen?
My idea. I did it. I said, let's
Must
go from 4-4 into 6-8.
right.
Let's go to because when you see a cricket team, when you have these dhol tashas in the stadium, they're playing 6-8 only. They're playing 6-8. I said, let's switch over to 6-8. So,
Indian Tasha festival drumming kind of a feel, like very victorious. That whole
Yeah.
what a
Yes,
brilliant
yes.
piece of work. Brilliant.
So I mean, it's like you said, these composers. When these composers when they have a faith in you, like Shankar and Sanloy, they always have had this faith in me. And other composers, even Pritam had a big faith in me
You did
when he
Hoon-
called me to work.
Hoon too.
Sorry,
You
Home
did.
too. Yeah. So when I went to meet Pritam, that was the first time I worked with him, and he said, "Tawfiq bhai, you've heard of the band called Stomp?" I said, "Arey, it's one of my favorite bands. In fact, I have a band called Mumbai Stamp, which is inspired by that Stomp." So he said,
Tawfiq,
"Oh wow."
I've seen that show twice live in New York. I've seen that show twice myself, and then anybody who would come to New York, I would take them to Stomp, because that would
I
be
saw them in New York only. The first time I saw them in New York. I've seen them thrice, let me tell you. I saw them in New York for the first time because Zakir Bhai told me, you go and check these guys out. And this I'm talking about 2001. When I first,
town hall year.
when I saw them in New York,
Right.
I saw this Stomp. And the second time in 2004, I saw them in London.
Okay.
And the third time, I saw them very recently, about 5 years back, 4 5 years. When I took my son and I said, "You must see this, Shikhar." So I am a big fan of theirs. So he told me, Aditya Chopra, they're doing this film and they want this whole this thing created. I said, okay. So we met Aditya and Aditya Chopra, and then we discussed the track. And he made me see this whole video of Storm. And I said, wow, this is, I've seen them, I've seen them live, so I know what it is. I said, you know what? I will give you this sound, but let's not do what they have done because they've already done it.
Right.
Let's try to create something of our own. And again, I would say that's kind of them. They had the faith in me, कि, okay, ये कुछ करेगा. And they said, okay, why don't you show us something? What is in your head? And I created this whole legim. Now, legim is a rhythm idea from Maharashtra. But I took
What
these
is it called?
trash
Sorry.
legim.
Legend.
Huh? So I created a whole legim field track, but instead of the dhol tasha and all, I just used bins, buckets, trash cans, and I created this whole sound for Hrithik Roshan's entry. Boom, taka ta 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 ta, taka ta 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 ta, taka ta taka ta taka ta taka ta, boom, 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 taka ta 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 ta. So this is actually a legend field. Boom, taka ta 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 ta. Boom, boom, taka ta 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 ta, taka ta ta, boom, boom, taka ta ta, boom, boom, taka ta ta, boom, taka ta, boom, taka ta, boom, taka ta, boom, taka ta, 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 dhan 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 tak, dhan 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 tak, dhan 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 dhan. अभी ये धन 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 this is not in legend. This is a South Indian ta din ka ta ka din ta ta ka din ta ta. This is a pure South Indian thing. In fact, when Shankar heard this track, he immediately knew I had done it. बोला तौफीक ही करेगा. In fact, he met me somewhere and he said, you know, I love that South Indian touch which you brought in the end. And I said, have to be Tawfiq. So and I did that. So it's a mixture of legend and Carnatic and the effect that it has. And of course, it's been very beautifully shot. So again, I'm saying having faith in the guy you brought into the field. When then when somebody has a faith in you, then you feel like coming out with your best.
Absolutely.
And I'm fortunate that people like Shankar Ehsaan Loy, Preetham, and even to this date, even these music directors, young guys, Sachin Jigar, with whom I've worked on ABCD 1, ABCD 2, where I created this whole Ganpati track for them. They had the faith in me that Tawfiq will do something. Tawfiq Bhai he will create something now. So when people put the faith in you, then you feel like doing your best and coming out with your best. And I'm really fortunate. Yeah.
Tawfiq ji, this is like the minute I heard that track. First of all, I knew that you are a Storm fan. I knew it. I mean, I didn't know about you separately. I was like, this must have triggered something in this, And then the Christian, that whole like the Korvai thing that you do in the end. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your training and experience with Vidwan Vikku Vinayakaramji. How did that come about? And
well, I've been a fan of Vikkuji since Shakti days,
of course.
And yeah, so whenever I would get time, like whenever he would be in Mumbai for a concert, I would go and be with him in the hotel and in the back room in the green room, and he has traveled with us in Masters of Percussion many times.
Right. Before Selvaji.
Before Selvaji, yeah. So for me, whenever I would travel with him, in the plane I would sit next to him, in the bus I would sit next to him, in the hotel I would take the room next to him, so that I could go and spend time with him whenever and take whatever knowledge he can give me. And he has been very kind to give his knowledge to me. In fact, it's because of him that I started understanding the whole South Indian rhythm philosophy. Because in my mind it was there, if I need to collaborate with South Indian musicians, I want to know that. I want to know that rhythm philosophy and know how they think. And he didn't teach me any ghatam. He realized that I don't need to learn ghatam, although I did take his technique.
What about the ghatam fingering techniques that you just talked about?
That I took from him. But he realized that I just wanted the knowledge.
Right.
So he started teaching me the philosophy of how a Korvai is created. What do they do? What is the whole process of counting? How they would progress in a solo? How they go from one Nadai to other Nadai, from Tisra to Khanda to Mishra, how they go. So he started explaining to me all these philosophies, which really opened my mind. Really opened my mind. I'm really thankful to him, indebted to him. And so I would spend a lot of time with him. Even now, whenever I'm there with him on stage, before going on stage in green room. Even if I'm not performing with him, if he's there, I go attend this concert. I will spend time with him because I know that I will get something, and he's so kind. He never asks for any fees or anything. He just gives, he's like a vast ocean. He said,
Absolutely.
take whatever you want from me. Take, because it's never going to get empty because he's like an ocean.
But again, Tawfiq ji, it's also you that he's giving it to. He's not wasting his time. Like he knows where he's. That is also there because this is particularly fascinating to me because for the last about 16 years I've been studying with one S. Shekhar ji in Kolkata.
Yes, of course. Of course. I'm a big fan of his playing, and I've had many moments where I've shared the stage with him, and it's always a pleasure to share the stage with
Absolutely, and
Shekharji.
taught me so.
Of course, part of with not on solo level, but being part of Bikram Ghosh's Rhythmscape.
Right, absolutely.
So he was always there, and I've done a lot of concerts with Bikram Da as part of as a guest on his Rhythmscape. So that's how I got to share stage with Shekharji.
So the thing is that their system there is so much of logic and embedded details in the way that we as Hindustani percussionists, we look at the matras, and their entire view of the thing is in aksharas, which is defined by the tal and the nadai combined. And I will at some point send you. I have devised, inspired by Bikram Da, of course. I have devised. He had made a Carnatic tabla to play the repertoire of the mridangam on the tabla, and I've taken an actual mridangam head and embedded it on the tabla itself. And I use that to actually emulate the whole Carnatic thing. I will send you a video for your,
Please
just
do that.
your reference.
Please.
And now this brings me down to the probably the most awaited question of the evening is that
What for dinner? What's for dinner?
Yes, absolutely. What is for dinner? Your collaboration and your growing up with the master of all masters, Ustad Zakir Hussain, as your elder brother and co-artist. Please talk about that.
Well, see, for me to say anything about Zakir Bhai is like, the literally सूरज को दिया दिखाने जैसा है. It's literally like that. He's my, हर एक 10 अवतार होते हैं ना. I have seen all the 10 avatars in my brother Zakir Bhai, as a friend, as a philosopher, as a guide, as a father figure, as a brother, as a colleague, as a co-musician, everything. I've seen the 9 avatars of him, and I'm very proud to be his younger brother. He always introduces me as my younger brother TAUFIQ QURESHI, and that makes me feel very nice. Rather than him saying Maestro and he would say younger brother. I think that's a bigger title to me, I feel, because कोई बोले Maestro है, ये है, वो है, Ustad, and it's fine, it's great. But when he says my younger brother, मेरा छाती ऐसा हो जाता है कि I'm the younger brother of Ustad Zakir Hussain, So that makes me feel really nice. So I've grown up with seeing him as a father figure, as a person who has always inspired me, encouraged me, pushed me to think beyond, beyond something. And whenever I'm on stage with him, for me, it's like I'm having a master class. But the lucky thing is that it's a one-on-one master class. I'm not sharing the master class with other students. It's just me and him on stage. Yeah, I mean, it's just me and him on stage, and I'm learning from him, And he has always, whenever he's on stage, you know about it, he never gives the feeling, whichever musician is there, I'm telling you, you can ask them, he never gives us a feeling that, we are on stage with a legend. He is like, I'm just your co-musician, I'm just like you. He gives us that feeling. And that kind of makes us feel good. We are not like, oh, in awe. We are in front of a legend. No, we are in front of a friend, a colleague, co-musician, a brother, and that kind of reduces our nervousness and
Absolutely.
he will push us to bring out the best in us. And so that's what Pratik is all about.
He has a very strange, a peculiar way of making you feel so important and bringing your confidence out. I remember once I had spoken to him from Canada, and he knows that I'm a film composer, so he keeps pulling my leg. Oh, acha, so you will go back to India and work with all the actresses and everything, and we will tabla players, we will stay here. And then at the end of the conversation, he said, "Ha, but if you need a tabla player for your tracks, know that I'm available." Okay. Acha, acha, okay. Okay,
But do
sure.
you know that he is the one who first showed me your video.
Really?
He said, look at this guy, look at the way he's playing the baya, you know. And he said, look
Okay.
at the way he's playing the baya,
Yeah.
how he's using his all fingers on the baya to create rela and all that. And he was the first one to show me a video many years ago now, at least now it's 7, 8 years back or 6, 7 years back. I don't know how old it was. And he said, look, or maybe about
That's
4, 5 years back.
5 years back,
Huh?
2015. Baya ka
Yeah,
rela.
5 years. 5 years back. And he said, look how he's working on it. And I said, wow, that's really great. Very nice. I mean, good to
Wow.
see this.
Tawfiq ji, that brings tears to my eyes. I mean, like the fact that he would go and I've heard this, other people have told me also, but just so like I said, like that honor that it is the fact that he goes and does this. Like when he introduces me to somebody, like he's introducing me to John McLaughlin of all people. And then he says he's a fine young tabla player, he's a this, he's a composer, he's blah blah blah. I think Rakhi ji just say, मेरा चेला है, मेरा assistant है, कुछ भी बोल दीजिए इतना कुछ, please don't say all these things because you are standing there next to me saying it. It makes me
That's
feel.
how it. Tell me, now I have told you before, this is going to be a chat. Now, you've got a little different way of playing the baya
Hmm.
from other tabla players. So,
Hmm.
what made you get into that zone and how did you figure that out? I mean,
Okay, this is a very interesting question, and it has a very interesting answer for you and me. I'll tell you how this happened. When I was born in New York, and I grew up in New York, and so I used to listen only to Abbaji's playing on
okay.
records. Okay.
Hmm.
This is in the 80s, and we didn't have videos and YouTube and all of that. So, and I didn't have a proper teacher.
Hmm.
So when I heard his thunderous pirikit kaidas,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
I heard it, but I didn't know how this is being done.
Yeah.
So I had a pair of tablas, and I started doing it on the baya. Like mainly the technique would be on the baya, and the tabla would be doing the baya's role, which is playing the in-between cuts.
Okay.
Okay. But I'm not left-handed or ambidextrous in any way at all. I'm fully right-handed. So
Okay.
then the interesting thing that happened is Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, my parents took me to Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, and he said that, like they believed that, if he has not learned from anybody, but he can play like this, that means he was born, this is something that he's remembering from his previous lifetime or something. So he
Oh, wow.
made and he recommended that I be taken to India and be trained under Pandit Gyan Prakash Ghosh, Babu, who was my first guru. And he said, please take him to India because यहाँ पे training नहीं हो सकता है. New York, now you can be born and you can grow up in New York and become a tabla player. But in the
Yeah,
80s,
yeah.
that's not possible.
Yeah, there was nobody there. Yeah.
There was nobody there. So that's how I came to India. Then I was taught that tirikiti is played with the right hand and the cut is done. I had to unlearn the whole thing. But the skill that I had developed as a child, that never left my hands.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So much later, I started using that as another angle and using all the three fingers,
Yeah.
play baya and things like that to answer your question. So the inspiration was Abbaji.
Brilliant. But it is brilliant. It's a very unique and different way of playing, and it's amazing how you've done that. Really.
but I like consciously worked very little to develop that, and whatever I did was as a child. And you know, when you do something as a very young child, it becomes programmed into your muscles and your brain and all of that. So I kind of now I do a jugalbandi between the right hand and the left hand, doing crickets on alternate hands, and you know, showing.
That's good. No, that's good.
So
The husband and wife.
what is that?
No, I'm saying Maya is the husband and Chati is the wife.
Absolutely, it's kind of like your husband and wife fight, you know. At the end, Chati says get out, Chati laga ke get out hota hai usme.
Oops, sorry. Sorry.
No problem, no problem. Tawfiq, how do you see the djembe as part of the future of Indian classical music, as a solo instrument, an accompaniment, as you know, like the other instruments that got established, like the violin, like the santoor, like the saxophone? You are one of those pioneers who has incorporated this and brought it into our realm. What do you see in the future of this instrument, our music?
Well, I am, my whole thing is I'm teaching djembe a lot now. There are a lot of students. My son is playing. Shikhar is playing.
Playing very well.
There are other students. There are other students who are playing. Omkar is there. Omkar Sasadunke, Gautam Sharma, Nitin Sasato, Parth Joshi, Dipesh Verma, Samir. There are many students who are doing a good job in playing djembe, and then there are other students also. And yes, I would want that, you know, this instrument be recognized in Indian classical music, definitely, because my aim is that, you know, the tabla is such a vast instrument, and the knowledge that this instrument has is tremendous. It can be described on any surface. People are now trying it on drums also. I can see that, and it's very nice to see that.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that when in India, about 15 to 20 years back, nobody knew what djembe is all about. But I'm thankful that now, due to me working so much onto the djembe, and then my students now playing so much of the djembe, people have now gotten aware of this instrument and are accepting this instrument in the mainstream classical music. I'm doing solos. You know, at one time when Zakir Bhai first time asked me to do a solo in 2009, he said in the Barsi, Bajis Barsi. And I played Shikhar Tal, 17 beats. And the time slot given to me was 1 hour 15 minutes. And I played only for 45 minutes. And I remember Yogesh Bhai asking me, Taufiq Bhai, why did you play so less? I said, look, this is all I have now. But wait for a day when I will play a 2 hour solo also on the djembe. Because I was still working on certain elements, you know. And with Abba's Ashirwad and God's grace, now I do 1.5 hour solo. I even have done a 2 hour djembe solo. And people have not got bored and have not left the audience, which means that they were enjoying it. So now my repertoire has increased. I can now do a longer solo. And I've done solos in 19 beats and 17 beats and Pandra Matra and different tals, you know. And Suresh Dada once heard my Brahmatal, 19 beats. 19 beats. And he was so happy. He said, you are doing on djembe the 19 beats. So I'm thankful to God that he has led me to this instrument, djembe. And I want this to be part of Indian classical music, and people are accepting it. I'm also using this djembe to accompany, I've accompanied Rahul Sharma, Niladri Kumar, Rakesh Chaurasia, Purbenj Chatterjee, Ravi Chari, so many others also. Young musicians also. Where I'm using this
along with the tabla, or is it only
no, just the djembe. If you will YouTube, I have accompanied young musicians like Sarang Kulkarni, who is a sarod player, and I've accompanied him only on the djembe. And with others, there have been other musicians also. What I'm doing is I am not replacing the tabla. Nothing can replace it. What? I'm expanding the knowledge, and I am bringing it into accompaniment, into solo, into fusion, into all kinds of music, into film music. So this instrument can be used in all realms of music. in all genres of music. That's what my aim is. Now, whether the people accept it as a classical instrument is all on them. My thing is to go on trying, and I've told my students also, you just go on doing your work. You work hard, the people will give you your reward.
Your due.
So, ek din, inshallah, this will be accepted into the classical world of music as an Indian classical instrument.
It will be. I am very sure of that. Just as a listener of classical music, shutting off the fact that I'm a musician, just as a lover of classical Indian music and the music that you do, I mean, I can't see any reason why this won't be accepted. I mean, it is so aesthetically balanced, and you have developed the instrument in such a wholesome way, in such an all-encompassing periphery of the aesthetic, the content, the mathematics, the repertoire, the playing technique, the sound of the djembe as required to be incorporated into the Indian classical music aesthetic, not as a djembe per se. So it absolutely has to be accepted. Taufiq ji, at the end of the session, I do a little rapid fire kind of thing.
Oh, you have a rapid fire? So do I get like a hamper or something? Gift hamper?
Absolutely, you do. Absolutely. So if you, I will throw something at you, and whatever comes to your mind instantly is the question. Indian classical music or world fusion music?
Both.
Okay, you know that answer is not allowed in rapid fire, right?
What? You're asking me whether Indian classical music or fusion music, right?
Yeah, from your perspective.
Yes. For me, both are important. So I would go for both. Because, but you know what? To be honest with you, Indian classical music, because whatever fusion we are doing nowadays, it's all the roots are from Indian classical music. So yes, Indian classical music.
Okay, that's what I was getting. Thank you. Okay. Abbaji, father or guru?
Guru.
Absolutely. Zakid ji, brother or artist / collaborator colleague?
Brother.
Wow. It's amazing how these two answers differ. You know, like it's
Differ from what?
These two answers, and
Okay, yeah.
kind of differ.
Correct.
Fantastic. Performance, India or abroad?
Definitely India. At least in COVID times.
Okay. As a performer, soloist or collaboration? Like a solo or collaboration?
Soloist.
Solo. Okay. Apart from Abbaji and Zakindi, of course, some of your favorite tabla players?
Someone's favorite tabla players?
Yes, from each generation.
None other than Pandit Sopan Chaudhary ji. And my Guru Bhai, Yogesh.
Yogesh Bhai, of course. And what about the next generation, the younger batch?
Tabla players, I love Ishan Ghosh.
Absolutely.
I'm a big fan of Ishan Ghosh. He's a brilliant tabla player. The way he's playing now is amazing. It's like
he's so young.
He's so young. That's why at this age he's playing like that. I mean, it's amazing. His whole persona and the way he accompanies and the way he plays. So I'm a big fan of his playing.
We all are. Absolutely. Okay. Indian cuisine or non-Indian food?
Definitely Indian.
Definitely Indian. Okay. Okay, so that is rapid fire. At the end, I want you to leave us a message for aspiring percussionists drummers, people who are trying to push the boundaries, tabla players like me.
Well,
How?
all, all I can say is what our father told us
Hmm.
many years ago. He told all of us sons and his students that in life you should always be a student. Never consider yourself a master. Be a student always, because therefore you will always have the urge to learn.
Kya
And
baat
you
hai.
can go on learning for the rest of your life. I'm still learning, you know.
Hmm.
And when you are learning, you're evolving as a musician. So never ever shy away from learning. Always consider yourself a very good student. That's it.
Kya, kya baat hai, Tawfiq ji. Tawfiq ji, there is a question from someone. It's simple. I will take one question before we end today. How do you develop a peshkar in real time?
Well, that's going to be a very long process because, as you know, Peshkar is the first thing you do when you're doing a solo.
Hmm.
So a Peshkar can go from 5 minutes to 20 minutes.
Absolutely.
So all I can say is I've already said it. Whenever I'm seeing a Peshkar, for me, I see the sky. And then suddenly in the sky, I will see a flock of birds moving. And then suddenly I will see something shooting, coming down and diving into the earth or the water and then going up.
Hmm.
And suddenly I will see a cloud. And I'm trying to figure out what is it resembling. Is it resembling something, a mountain or a Ganesha or something? And suddenly out of that cloud, I will see what it is, what it is, what is it that I'm seeing,
The shape.
the shape. And then
Fantastic.
suddenly I will see rain falling from the sky. You know. So the Peshkar for me is something like that, where we see all these things and we try to define it through our playing.
Hmm.
That's a Peshkar.
Kya baat
That's
hai.
how I would develop it.
Kya baat hai. Tawfiq ji, once again, Shashtang Pranam to you. And I cannot thank you enough for this absolutely in-depth, insightful um, ocean of knowledge that you shared with us today. We are
Thank
all
you so much, Mayookh. Thank you so much for having me. And I thank everybody who has come and logged on and has seen this. I'm very happy that you all came and you're giving me your blessings. It is the blessings of people like you who come and listen to us, whether we talk or whether we perform, that pushes us to bring out the best in us. Thank you for always being here.
absolutely. Tawfiq ji, stay safe, stay at home as much as
You
you
too.
can. And
Are you now? You're in New York right now? Where are you?
no, I'm in Kolkata now. I'm in Kolkata.
Oh, you're in.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
All the best to you, man. You stay safe.
Absolutely, Tawfiq ji, absolutely. And so, for all of you who have joined late or have missed any part of this interview, it will be up on my IGTV, and I will share the link on my profile. And eventually, this will go up on YouTube as well, starting next month. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And once again, we applaud and we give our pranams to the Maestro, Tawfiq Qureshi ji. Thank you so much for being
Khuda
here.
Hafiz and see you all soon, inshallah.